This week on Women Who Rise, I'm joined by Tiffany Gelzinis, powerhouse CEO, team leader, and mentor to women rising in business and life. Tiffany shares how she built a thriving real estate business, overcame challenges with grit and strategy, and what it really takes to lead with excellence while staying true to yourself. You don't want to miss her wisdom, her story, and her advice for women ready to break through. Hi, this is Heather Mansy with Women Who Rise, the success podcast for ambitious women. Today, my special guest is Tiffany Gelzinis, CEO of the Gelzinis Group and Realtor in Residence at Follow Up Boss, the top-rated CRM platform. So stay tuned. Tiffany Gelzinis is the founder and CEO of the Gelzinis Group, a top-performing real estate team known for its data-driven approach, innovative marketing, and unwavering commitment to client experience. A respected thought leader in the industry, she has spoken at national summits like the Zillow and Follow Up Boss Conversion Summit and the Wailopo and Follow Up Boss Conversion Summit, where she shares her expertise in building scalable businesses and leading with purpose. Tiffany is also a realtor in residence at Follow Up Boss, where she mentors others on leveraging technology and systems for success. She's passionate about fostering growth, excellence, and empowering others, especially women, to rise in their careers and lives. And I am so pleased to welcome her to the podcast today. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here.
Heather, thanks so much for having me. That was an amazing intro. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You absolutely deserve it. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, I mean, obviously you and I met when you spoke on stage in Charleston. You really lit up the room with your knowledge, your specificity, your leadership. For me, it was just like, wow, this woman has a ton of what I would view as personal power and empowerment. It really exudes from you. And I know that part of that is coming through your drive to put knowledge first, to have systems, and to be someone who thrives in structure and, you know, that kind of mastery and diving deep. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what that looks like in your current role?
Sure. No, absolutely. So it's always interesting when people say that I, strive in structure or thrive in that space, because it's a necessity to have the structure, and it's because I haven't always had it. And I think that that's something, a lot of times when we hear people speak and they're coming from a position of leadership or, what we might feel like in real estate as a, real estate famous or whatever it is we want to call it. We always think, oh, they've got it all together. They know what they're doing. And what I want to say about that is we don't always know what we're doing, and we don't always have it all together. And there was a lot of lessons learned and things that have happened over the years where I just had to put processes and systems in place, and honestly, some, barriers as well, or guardrails, if you will, as well, so that I can also respect my family and my personal life. So it hasn't always been that way, but I do love a good process. I definitely love technology. I really thrive on utilizing leverage in my business, and that's how I'm able to do everything that I do.
I love that. Leverage is really a key term. When I spoke with Spring Benson a few weeks ago, we talked about how partnerships and leverage and that kind of thing can really forward your business. I want to talk about that for a moment, but I also want to go back first and just kind of ask, your career is rooted in such a clear vision and philosophy now, but what was your very first, job or earliest memory, I should say, of just seeing yourself in business? How did you go, from whatever other inspiration you might have had in your life to going, wow, I'm a woman who does well in business and thrives in this atmosphere, regardless of the specific, task at the time. When did you see yourself as a businesswoman?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I love this. As a kid, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. And I mean, starting out with, the silliest businesses back in, I think I was in fourth grade and we went door to door and collected recycling materials to take them. That was back when we would still get paid a couple of, pennies or dime or whatever, having aluminum cans and plastic bottles. I mean, but I've always been an entrepreneur and it's been a journey. Like I knew I have an undergraduate degree in marketing management and went back and got my master's in business. So I have my MBA, and I knew from the start that I wanted to own a business. I didn't always know what that business would be. So going from, college and then into working in businesses and business development and marketing, then starting down the path of being an entrepreneur, I, ran my dad's engineering firm with him for a little while and then ended up inheriting that when he passed away and kept it running for a little while and then moved on to something else. So it's kind of always it's been 20 plus years now of being an entrepreneur. And that's always been what I was going to do, was own a business. It was just a question of which one.
Yeah, I love that. And it's incredible how, like you said, you didn't necessarily have, structure in place always. And then you've also talked about how you have basically always been someone who was, sort of scrappy, going out there, creating something from nothing, being someone who, the cans and bottles or whatever, being someone who literally from a very young age decided that you were capable of, earning money in the world and even just kind of finding that path and being willing to do it on your own, which I think is such a key indicator anyway of entrepreneurs, is that they're willing to be the one to go, hey guys, I've got this crazy idea, follow me. And it's funny because it may be literally the mud cakes as a kid, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, did you always envision yourself building something at this level? Because you do have a top performing real estate team. And then literally being, I'm a Follow Up Boss user. It is a stellar CRM. It's unbelievable. In terms of, I've used other systems that were fantastic. This is really a level above, and it really keeps my team performing well. But the fact that you are their realtor, one of their realtors in residence, this is really huge because it means you are the example. And so I'm curious regarding both your team, because you could just be an individual realtor, right? What had you build something at this level? Did you always envision that? Was that always kind of a bigger dream or goals? Are you someone who shoots long and big? Or was there some other path or reason that this occurred?
So I'll say that I always knew that I wanted to build a business in real estate. Like when I got into real estate, it wasn't necessarily, I didn't start out thinking, oh, I want to build a team. I didn't even really know what that meant to start with, but I did know I wanted to build a business. Mm-hmm. And so the team idea came across, actually, it was pretty quickly after I got licensed and started selling real estate. Originally, I got licensed just to be able to get access into homes because I was a real estate investor. So I started out as an investor. I wanted to be able to get data quickly and to be able to get into homes on my own schedule and not have to wait on somebody else to get me information. So I got my real estate license for that purpose and that purpose alone, and really thought that I would kind of continue down the path of being a real estate investor. And then I was introduced to the whole world of possibility in real estate and started going down a different path because it was available and it made sense. And, as just a regular person before getting into the real estate industry, I didn't know the possibilities that were there for me. But getting into, I started out at Keller Williams. So I read that book, and I was like, oh, wait.
MREA, I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, the red book.
Knowing your
Yeah,
real estate agent, we all know
yeah,
that one. And it was like,
yeah,
oh, wait, hold on. I can actually turn this license into a thriving business that can not just affect my life or not just have an impact on me, but can have an impact on other people. That's pretty cool. And there's no ceiling on what we can do here. And that was a big thing for me. I am very driven and I am a person that, I can't remember the phrase that you used, but like shoots long and far or what have you. But yeah,
yeah,
that is it. It's when
yeah,
I start thinking about what am I going to do this year, I have big goals always. I've had to rein myself in sometimes to make it make sense for everybody else that works around me. But definitely starting the real estate team was not an idea that I had at first. I did start doing that really quickly. About a year into the business, I realized that I needed some leverage. There's that word again. I
yeah,
needed to bring people in to help me. I got busy really fast. And then I started thinking about real estate as not just buying and selling houses, but building a real structured business around it with operations and marketing and salespeople. And how does this look? How can we make this into more of a consulting business than just a bunch of 1099s hanging out trying to, sell houses? So that idea started the team. And honestly, there's been a few iterations of the team. I'm sure that you hear that from a lot of real estate professionals.
hmm,
But I think we've got a really good thing going on now with what we have. And the opportunity to start working with Follow Up Boss was, I mean, I want to say a little bit of it was luck, but also just not being afraid to give, to speak my mind, to give information to the engineers and product managers at Follow Up Boss, to provide feedback on the tool, just not being afraid to speak my mind. And that is eventually what led me down the path of becoming their realtor in residence. And I really love the job. I love the fact that I get to stay in a space of innovation for more hours out of my day. And that's where I thrive, is in innovation. And it's just very, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to
hmm,
be able to impact the product and be able to train others on how to use it. And it's just an amazing opportunity.
yeah. I think so much to unpack there, but I love the fact that you basically said, innovation was a passion of yours, because I think that's really the creative side of business. Like you, I came in as an investor first into real estate, so I thought that was very informative. And then, one of the things I wrote down was impatience, because this is, again, I think, if we're trying to say how do people rise? Impatience actually can kind of help, or a really bold vision or a really, really strong why or desire. Those are all things that can propel a person. And then it's necessity. Again, it's what creates more creation around us, because we go, wait a minute, I'm not going to wait for this realtor to show me this house. I want to be better, faster. I want to do more. I want to do it in my own time. And so I'm just going to get the license and start DIYing this thing. I love that. And then just basically talking about this concept of innovation. And I can really see where your degree that you had studied, I mean, getting an MBA is no small thing. I have a Bachelor of Science in Business, and that was something I really wanted to pursue. Haven't yet gotten to that, but it's incredible because, yes, you really do learn a lot about this formalized concept of
Yes.
corporations and businesses. It's really fruitful when you're then trying to backwards apply that to something that you're in, and that in many cases is not really treated like or thought of as a systematized, formalized business, which
Right.
is real estate teams, right? This is something, because I'm a process person as well on my team. I just notice So many of us will engage in coaching if we even get that far, or, we may not do that well as a team because if you're not treating it like a formalized business. So it explains a lot because first of all, you love structure. Secondly, you have got that formalized training that can tell you these are some of the things that other businesses do when they grow, they scale. Scaling can be dangerous. You got to do it right. You got to budget. You got to look for ROI and all these kind of things. I can kind of see that in you. You mentioned again leverage, and I just want to hit on that really quickly because yes, if you're talking about growing a business, scaling, because ultimately rising, going further, faster, whatever that is about growth. And so I think leverage is such a key piece, and it can look different for different businesses. What did leverage look like for you then, or at big growth periods that you've had, and now?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I would say the first piece of leverage was bringing in an assistant. So bringing in somebody to help me with transaction coordination and, some marketing and interactions with clients, those kinds of things. And then, kind of the same, obviously tried to let's follow the formula of what's worked in the past for other people. Let's bring in an assistant. Let's bring in a buyer's agent, those kinds of things. But I would say the pivotal moment for me of bringing in like the most effective piece of leverage that I brought in was the third iteration of my team, I will say. So kind of like going through, learning those lessons, blowing it up, restarting it. And I'm going to back up for 1 second because I want to make a statement about that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with copying a pathway from somebody else. There's nothing wrong with learning, and we call it like R&D, right? Rip off and duplicate.
Rip off and duplicate, yes.
There's nothing wrong with that, but there's also a place where you need to realize that not everybody's formula or everybody's path works for every person. And if the business is not serving you as the owner, then you need to think about how you can make it serve you, or you need to do something different, because that's where the passion leaves the business. And if you're just frustrated with it all the time, then it's just not worth it. And that's where I was at this moment in time when in building this traditional team. And I'm going to throw a couple of other little, phrases out that we hear all the time from coaches or other, real estate masterminds, those kinds of things. You've probably heard, if you're building a team, hire 10 and fire 8, right? Like, weed them out. You don't know where the talent is until the talent's in front of you. I hated that idea. It was exhausting to me. And part of the reason why it was exhausting to me is because I am personally tie myself to the success of other people. And that has been a learning moment for me as well. When I bring team members in, I feel like I am personally responsible for helping them to be successful. And if I'm bringing people onto my team with the thought that 80% of them are going to be gone in 30 to 90 days, that just doesn't feel like me personally. It doesn't feel like me. So I had a really hard time with that philosophy. But then I had another challenge of, okay, well, if I'm not going to do that, it is really difficult to screen salespeople. Anyone that's built a team knows it's so hard to know at an interview who's going to be successful and who's not going to be successful.
I absolutely find this to be the case. Yeah. I used to joke spaghetti against a wall,
Yes.
My sister used to say she ran a restaurant. She would make jokes that they would throw the spaghetti against the wall. And then depending how long it stuck, you would know it was al dente. So I don't know at what point an agent is al dente, but I can say that I felt like, okay, the ones that stick, we keep them and they stay. And then, the rest kind of fall to the wayside. And I love what you said about having that sense of personal responsibility, not just for yourself and systems, et cetera, but also for others, because that speaks to such a caliber of true leadership that really is the thing that I think is one of the things real leaders will always fall back on or have, which is that sense of they have a bigger responsibility to the world around them for what they're creating. What were you going to say?
No, so I was going to say, so the next step there was figuring out for me what would work as far as the ability to attract talent and train them properly and help them to grow. And So in this pivotal moment in my business, I said, I've run a consulting firm, an engineering consulting firm before. And one thing that really stood out was kind of how we would work together as a team. We had, a professional engineer that was responsible for the project management. And then we would have junior engineers that were working underneath them. Maybe we'd had some drafters or whatever, but there were like many teams within the team, right? And a lot of that was, and then those junior engineers would eventually rise to be professional engineers and or project managers. So how can we replicate that idea of on-the-job training or an apprenticeship, if you will, in real estate? So I kind of went down that path, and that was the time that I hired my first licensed assistant. And actually it was, a sales assistant type position, but they were licensed. And the whole goal of that was to provide leverage for me and my clients, work alongside me, and then gradually take on more and more responsibility to become that professional agent. And that person did do that. She went from being my assistant, if you will, and we didn't exactly call her that at the time, but she went from being an agent that she was doing my showings. She was, going to my home inspections, and gradually I was backing out of some more and more of those responsibilities, but she was doing all of those things. She went from being that assistant to me to being the top producing agent on my team. Wow. And then hiring her own assistant and rinse and repeat. So it just created this whole different philosophy, this whole different model of like an apprenticeship type model. Now, I will say I'm kind of facing a little bit of a challenge now that that's not as scalable as I would like it to be.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more difficult to scale that model, but it has brought the best agents into my world. And just helped them to really thrive in the business and be very confident in what they're doing because they're working alongside another agent that is experienced. So that agent, the experienced agent, can produce more faster, and the junior agent gets that real world experience so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's huge. Basically, it gave them a leg into the business, probably while also paying some bills, I'm assuming.
Yes.
The ability to maybe have some sort of earnings while they were having that apprenticeship. And I so agree with you that this concept of apprenticeship and mentorship, is spoken about in some areas of real estate, but it's largely absent at the normal brokerage level because kind of understandably, they don't have a business plan that can allow that based on what they take in and based on their normal, I would say, hard costs. So that is incredible. And one of the things I was going to ask you, and this kind of feeds off of what you just said, what do you feel are key qualities that an agent who's actually going to level up in this industry must possess, either internally or demonstrably, with how they act or who they bring to the table every day as a realtor or as a mentee?
Yeah, so that's a little bit hard, but I'm going to say the number one thing for us is coachability. They have to be coachable, and that you have to get rid of the ego piece. And I think a lot of agents come in with this, I passed the licensing class, I know everything about the business, and then realize rather quickly that they don't know anything about the business. But they have this feeling of, I'm an excellent salesperson, so I'm going to sell all of the things. Well, let me tell you what, like if you're a great salesperson from another industry, that doesn't always translate to real estate. You can't pressure sell somebody into buying a house. There are way too many steps. Like I say it all the time, I can't sell you a house. I can advise you on the process and be a consultant to you to work through the process. But I'm not really, regardless of the fact that I'm called a salesperson, I'm really not a salesperson. I can't sell you a house. You have to want to buy it. So it's just a very different philosophy. And going from being a great, let's say, car salesman maybe doesn't necessarily translate to being a great real estate salesperson. So you have to have a a philosophy of or service to clients, like being a servant leader is a big one. And then being a coachable person, not afraid to ask questions and setting aside your ego. That's what makes a really great team member in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And so commission sales was my forte for a long time, and I've met and known so many, and I could not agree more on this concept that when you're repping a car, you're repping one product or a range of products that you've had a lot of training on. Every single house you see, unless you're working for a builder, a new home builder, is going to be different. And it's going to be, you're seeing it for the first time alongside the client. So really what you're just doing is sort of solving for the pros and cons of it, solving for the cons, and then maybe encouraging the pros, and literally guiding, making sure they're well protected legally, and that the process goes smoothly. I will always say the house sells itself. So yes. What you said, I think, is so well taken. I absolutely I think my assistant, when she reviews this later, is just going to laugh, because it's, I literally hire for three things: nice, genuine human kindness, and then no ego, which is coachability, because an ego is this kind of front facing, defense system that does not really allow for any sort of coachability. It's really, just kind of a layer that separates you from the person, and it makes it very hard to teach. So I love that in the concept of being a servant leader, which I can tell even from earlier when you said you take a personal responsibility in the success of your, people, and that you did not like that, hire and fire method of just kind of watching them sink or swim. I think that's very well laid out, again, in your concept of being a servant leader. And I think it's absolutely well taken that those key qualities are what make a great agent. So you've talked also about the importance of staying consistent and being data driven. And as the realtor in residence, a follow-up boss, is like, I'm excited because we're getting to the meat here. What in particular does it really mean at a granular level if you have, first of all, any company, right? Because we're not just real estate specific on this podcast, but also in regards to real estate as well. What does that look like? Staying consistent and also being data driven on a granular level.
Yeah. So, data is your most important asset. And unfortunately, it's a 4-letter word to a lot of business owners, especially when you start talking about, well, how do I get this data? How do I analyze the data? What is it that I need to be looking for? But it fundamentally goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is running your business like a business. So you have to know what's working and what's not working, and you can't use your gut or your instinct to figure that out. There's always going to be, we say we've got leading indicators of success, and then we've got lagging indicators of success. And you need to be able to differentiate between those two. So let's say like leading indicators of success might be a little bit more vague on, whether or not it's quality conversations with a certain new lead type, or, just that might have more feelings involved. But you can always tie those leading indicators of success to the lagging indicators, which is that closed transaction, those dollars in the bank. So, but you need to know, like, what was that path? How did we get there? And that is one thing that, in coaching agents, it's a lot easier for me to tell an agent based off of the data of our team, based off of this data that I've collected over a number of years, thanks to Follow Up Boss. If you do this thing, statistically speaking, this result should happen.
100%.
And if I'm telling them that, that's a lot more believable than saying, well, you should be able to close 2 houses a month. Yeah, 24 a year. Sure. $100,000. Great. We're going to be fantastic. But if I can say, okay, if that's your goal and that's what you want to do, I can work backwards and show you exactly how many minutes you need to be on the phone every single day. Now, what are you going to do to be on the phone that many minutes every day? How many calls do you have to make? Let's work that backwards. Now let's track that success for you personally, because that's my average. That's statistics. So if you're not hitting those statistics or those averages, then we know where to talk to you. Where do we coach you? Is it in the area of the funnel of the conversation and you're not setting appointments? Or is it you're setting lots of appointments, but they're not turning into transactions? What is happening and how can we coach you through that process? But that is all based on data. And then the same thing with, lead sources, or how are you setting up I'll go back to Follow Up Boss again, but how are you setting up your smart lists? How are you configuring these lists of people for agents to reach out to make sure that they're spending their time the best way that they can?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all about creating more efficiency for the agents. And the more efficient they can be, the more productive they can be. Because there's nothing more frustrating than, just making dials and not having conversations and selling houses. Nobody wants that to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And well taken. Because basically, I have always had this heart for salespeople, and I know you do as well. Because when you've been in the trenches, and I think as a leader, if you've not taken out the trash, it's hard to tell someone how to take out the trash, or what is the efficiency you've created. And so, in sales, it's number of conversations, it's diligence, and then those organizational systems. Really this is so key, because our goal should be to put those people in income producing activities. And those are generally the activities that salespeople really like, which is communicating with others, showing homes if you're in real estate, whatever that is, culminating a sale and being there to celebrate it when it happens, and in real estate when you're giving the key. So this idea that you can use your systems. And yes, I agree. Follow Up Boss is fantastic for this, because yes, you can go, wow, look, you're hitting this metric of a couple hundred calls a day. You've got so many people are picking up, or if they're not picking up, let's try a different time of day and see how that changes that metric. And then if they are picking up, but you're not getting appointments, then we've got to figure that out. How many minutes are you on the phone? And then guess what? Follow Up Boss records every conversation, so we can just quickly listen in. And it takes like 3 conversations to listen in as a manager and go, I get it. Okay.
Yep. I know
you're not going for the ask, or you went for the ask one time, not 2 or 3 times. You went for the ask one time, and after that, the conversation devolved into their dog's, broken leg. So it's kind of,
or you asked before you deserved to ask, right? You asked for an appointment before you had any rapport whatsoever. Why would they want to meet with you? Like, let's dial this back. Yeah.
Maybe let's talk about the dog a little first. So I love this. So who were the people, just kind of going outside of that for a minute, who were the people, the mentors, role models, or maybe even critics, who inspired and shaped your leadership style, and what lessons from them still guide you?
Yeah. So, I think that's an important question, because you need to seek information from a lot of different sources. And I will say I've spent a lot of time at conferences. I've heard a lot of different speakers. I've spent time in coaching, one-on-one coaching for a very long time. And that was definitely honestly, the coaching that I started with was the foundation of opportunity, if you will. It was the foundation of understanding what could be possible and how could I get there. Now, over time, I tweaked. It's not following the same recipe that my coach laid out. I tweaked how I was doing things, but I did get a great vision of how this could work and how it could happen and what I needed to do. The other thing is I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm going to put a plug in for, I am sure that this podcast will have a great effect on a lot of people's lives. But, and there are a lot of other podcasts as well that are just really informative of, getting you that information on how to build a business. So seek that information out. Team OS is one that I love. Ethan Butte is my bud. And it's basically all about how to build and scale a real estate team. A lot of podcasts I listened to over the years. I've read a lot of books, and it was either real estate books or just business books in general. I went back and pulled out a bunch of books that I read when I was in undergrad and grad school and read them again with a different set of eyes.
Love
And
that.
just continue doing that, focusing on those areas where you need to grow or you need to improve. Fill your brain with all of those thoughts of how it can happen,
Yeah.
and then start executing one thing at a time.
Yeah,
So
definitely. And also the idea of executing one at a time. You and I know when you come back from a conference, it can be really overwhelming. So it has become sort of a favorite thing to say, pick three or pick
yep,
one,
yep.
and I didn't mean to interrupt your thought there.
No, that's 100% correct. Yeah, pick one, pick three, but also it doesn't have to be perfect before you deploy it, because
Mhm.
you're going to iterate over time. You're always going to iterate, and you need to be comfortable doing that. I had this actually pasted to my wall for a long time, but this saying of sloppy success is better than perfect mediocrity. So be
So
okay.
good. Yeah.
Be okay with that. You don't need perfection every time. You just need to be willing to tweak things if it's not working, which also goes back to that data piece of making sure that you're monitoring things, you're looking at it. You don't just throw something out there and say, okay, check, that's done. You
Yeah.
need to be okay, get that feedback, get feedback from your team, get feedback from your clients, look at the data, but be okay with tweaking things over time. I think the other saying is progress over perfection, right? Like, just
Definitely.
keep making progress, and it's
Yeah.
okay to fall forward. There you go. There's like 3 quotable quotes right there. Like that, there's somebody
Definitely.
else's quotes, but
You're
I,
reminding me of a coach that I had, and one thing that I'm hearing as well is among so many leaders is that we engage coaching. When you get to a
yes,
point where either you're stuck or maybe you're not fulfilled in what you're doing, or you are but you want to grow, and you got to realize, I think Ben Kinney has said there's no additional award for getting there alone.
right.
This is a relay race. And one of the things I'm also hearing is be a constant learner.
Oh
This
yeah,
curiosity for learning, you're asking for your agents to be coachable. You are also saying you are coachable. You engage coaches, and then you're always saying, hey, I could amend this, I could tweak this, I could turn this differently. What is it? I don't know. Just out of curiosity. Absolutely love that you pulled out the degree business, the MBA books again, and
yeah,
went back through them. I literally made a note to do that myself because I've got a bookshelf of them, and I think that's fantastic
yeah.
because those things there's a reason they made it into the textbook. There's a lot of good stuff there. And then, yes, absolutely. I've got a coach who speaks in bumper sticker, and it's, progress, not perfection, analysis paralysis, do the thing. I think on my wall right now, I have do it now,
Yeah,
just do it because it's, analysis can be an amazing mental strength. The ability to be detailed and perfectionist, those can be such amazing, great strengths, but they also can be incredibly adept at holding you back because
paralyzing. Yeah,
you're getting ready to get ready, the whole time. And, when are you ever going to call it good? My mom was an artist, and, there was a point where she would literally just have to sit back and say, it's done. The painting is done. It's time to take it to market. But she could have said that day or 10 years later. It really just, and with the eye of the beholder who eventually bought that painting and fell in love with it, would it really matter?
right.
I think that imperfect progress, like you said, is so key. So I want to kind of pivot here and just ask, because you're a high performing individual, you have a lot of responsibilities, you've got a whole team, you've got a company of your own, you've ran other companies before, you do some coaching and some other things, and then of course the follow-up boss residency. So what daily habits,
Mm.
kind of mental tools or shifts or personal practices have been instrumental, and that you employ so that Tiffany can show up as Tiffany like this?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Daily habits. All right. So I'm gonna say I'm not great at daily habits. I'm really not. So I'm not like that. I'm not the get up at 5 a.m. person. I tried it. I did. It just wasn't me. I wasn't the
Yeah.
get up at 5 a.m. person. One thing that I do though every single day is I take time to think. Like take time to
Mm.
be in your space and think. And sometimes that's multiple times a day. So sometimes it is like, my assistant would probably laugh right now about this as well because I say, okay, I need to go take a brain break. And a lot of times that's because I just need to hit the reset button on, am I working on the priorities of the things that I need to be working on? My brain needs 10 minutes. I might go walk laps in the cul-de-sac of my neighborhood, or I might go sit and, look at the backyard for a little while, but I just think for a few minutes. Am I doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing, or do I need to reprioritize? Because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of the day and thinking, I didn't accomplish anything today, or I didn't do what I set out to do today. So, that's just a waste. I mean, the other thing that I would say is kind of a daily habit, which this one's almost kind of funny, but as much as I am in the tech world and I love systems and technology and automations and digitizing things and all of that, I love a good paper to-do list of
Uh-huh.
priorities that I can scratch off and then ball up into a ball and put in the trash can at the end of the day. Like that is like that's my heart. Like it's like, yes, this is done. So, I mean, that's kind of mine. I don't have any like fantastic morning routine. But here you go. Here's what you can take from that. You don't have to have a fantastic morning routine. You just need to know what works for you. And just because some other guru says that's what you have to do, it doesn't mean that that's what you have to do.
Yeah. Because certainly I gather you've read enough books and gone to enough conventions to have probably heard that ad nauseum, right?
Oh, yeah.
You probably have heard everything under the sun. And it's not inconsistent with some other, kind of incredible badass women,
Sure.
that you are literally saying thinking is my best kind of miracle moment. I don't need to have a miracle morning and, or have this hard workout at 5 a.m. But I do actually need time to sit and think. For me, I know it's sitting, projecting, projecting forward in business goals and things like that. It's also such a great thing to do when you are on, a trip or whatever. You're going away to a conference. It's a work trip anyway. While everyone else is hanging out at the bar, you can be back in your room, literally thinking about what is the next thing that you can do in your business to propel yourself forward. But I think, yes, that inner strategy. I love the brain break. I'm going to take a brain break. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah. Take a
And
brain break. Yep.
the to-do list, a lot of us are still very tactile and, this kind of thing. It's wildly satisfying
It
to
is.
cross something off a list and just go, ooh, I did that, and I encourage my agents to do that kind of thing too, because incremental successes are no less fun to savor than the biggest ones. And in fact, it's the little ones that seem to get us to the big ones anyhow.
Well, and I would encourage you to, like, no matter what you're doing, add those incremental tasks to that to-do list for the bigger goals, right? So if you
Yeah.
have something that you're working on that's a longer project,
Yeah.
show yourself that you're making progress. Show yourself that you're doing something today to hit that bigger project or to hit that bigger goal. So put that little incremental thing on your to-do list so you can say, yes, I did that. I made
Yeah.
progress towards that bigger thing. And then celebrate the gap. Celebrate the gap between where you started and where you've come. Like, look at that. Because I think one thing that we do to ourselves is, just to put another bumper sticker out there, that whole
Sure.
comparison kills joy thing, right?
Yeah.
And we look at these other people and we say, oh, I want to do that. I want to be that person. But we have to take time to celebrate what we have done and where we've come from, and just look at that path and celebrate the gap. Really spend some time thinking about that. Be grateful for it. And that's something that I spend time thinking about too. Like in my quiet thought process moments, I have to, we all have, well, I can't say we all have. I have, where I have this fear of failure, or I haven't done enough fast enough. I have imposter syndrome, all of these things, right?
Yeah.
But so I have to sit and think sometimes too, like, how did I get here? What happened? and celebrate where I've come from and what's happened over the last decade instead of just thinking I'm not where I wanted to be yet.
Love it. Love it. And I feel like there's a book about that, right? Isn't it The Gap and the Gain or something?
Maybe I need to
Yes,
look for
I
that one.
think
I
there
don't
was.
know.
I will find it and I'll put it in the link.
Yeah.
But this is it's oddly a fairly new concept that I have not heard about previously. I just heard about it within the last couple of years. And I've heard another coach speak on this, which is that yes, we're always comparing the future where we want to go versus where we are today and what hasn't been accomplished yet.
Right.
We're always feeling unmotivated when in fact, if your goal is here, but you started here and right now you're here, you should be celebrating, like you
Right.
said, that that reverse, gap of what you got to along the way of that goal. And I think that's so critically important just to realize, wow, look what you've done. Look what you've done so far. And that should, if anything, make it clear that you will eventually get to your goal rather than always going, man, it seems farther off,
Yeah. Keep
what
moving forward.
advice exactly what advice would you give to women looking to break into leadership, whether in a corporation, whatever it is, particularly in fields where they maybe feel unrepresented, or maybe they do have, like you say, that imposter syndrome, or what that looks like?
Don't act small.
So
Don't
good.
act small. That is my advice. I think I've said this twice already. I ran an engineering firm. It was the good old boys network in MEP engineering, and don't act small. Be confident in your abilities. If you're not confident in your abilities, seek additional education until you are confident in your abilities. And don't be small. Just speak confidently. Stop saying I'm sorry. And just speak your mind. And ask for what you want. That's the other thing. Ask for what you want. Don't be afraid to position yourself in the way that you need to get to where you need to go, and ask for what you want. Don't be small. Have a voice.
Yeah. Have a voice. This is number one. I absolutely love the concise way in which you said that, because I had a follow-up question, and that is, what do you think is most misunderstood? Or I would just say kind of the sort of fallacies or failing points rather about being a woman in leadership, or that's seeking to rise in leadership, especially in industries that are male dominated. Real estate is not exactly male dominated, although if you look at the highest levels, yeah, I'd say we're a bit underrepresented. And that's an understatement. And so, if things are feeling competitive and male dominated, what is most misunderstood about women in those situations?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of a tough one.
I think it goes back partly to what you just said about the fact that we're not either asking for what we want, and there's this maybe idea that, the upper management's going to just see us and read our mind.
Yes.
And realize that why we're performing so well on our job or trying to be amazing and stand out is because we're hoping to be recognized for the next thing. But that's not necessarily the way the person who's going to get that, male or otherwise, would or should be acting. They should be, like you said, asking, yes, go be a superstar at your job, but on top of that, be clear. Ask for what you want, communicate forward, and yes, don't act small. Be willing to say, hey, I want to get that raise, or hey, here's my opinion about this project we're doing. Don't hang out in the back of the room, because if you really want to be recognized as a leader or a manager or whatever's next, you got to start filling those boots now. One of my favorite comments is fake it till you make it.
Right.
And I loved what you said about training forward. If you feel that if you really have that much imposter syndrome, or if it's really just based in fact, where you literally are out of your depth and there's something you don't understand, go get that training, learn, make
Right.
yourself more valuable in the moment, because ultimately that's going to pay off. And it goes so much back to what I hear from you is that knowledge is so important, knowledge. And then, yes, being able to bravely stride forward. So I know that our time is getting limited. Looking ahead, what is next for you? And also, how can people reach out to you? What initiatives or things are you up to that maybe someone can go, wow, I'd love to learn from this lady, or whatever that is, where she's speaking next, whatever. What are you up to?
So I always have some kind of speaking engagement coming up. Thankfully, with Follow Up Boss is a big advocate of that. And then, starting to grow more. I will be speaking at Unlock, the conference in November. So that's coming up. And actually, I think that I'm doing a session at EXPCon as well. Still kind of to be determined on the topics there, but it's a session through Follow Up Boss. So looking forward to that. Always on, webinars and masterminds. If you are a Follow Up Boss user, join us, follow us on the Follow Up Boss Success community for sure, because that you're going to learn so much there. And then in order to find me, I'm going to say it's really simple. Google my name. I'm the only one of me. That is the benefit of having a really unique name. But yeah, Tiffany Gelzinis on Instagram, on Facebook. And if you want to email me, please do. Please send me messages. That's another thing that I would say that a lot of times women are afraid to do, is to reach out and ask questions. Like, please reach out to me. The easiest email for me is tiffany@followupboss.com. I don't offer coaching services, but I will get you pointed in the right direction. I'll tell you where I'm speaking next, and I'll answer your questions. And I would just love to hear from you.
I love that. So good. Tiffany, thank you so much for joining me today. Really, really have appreciated this session, and so much gold from just this brief conversation. And I know that people are going to take away just a lot of strength and the ability to run forward from you today. Well, folks, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining Women Who Rise, the success podcast for ambitious women. And we look forward to sharing incredible takeaways with you from this episode and others. If you would like to like and subscribe and join us on all the channels in which we are represented, we look forward to bringing you more incredible content every week so that you can rise in your own lives and careers. Again, thank you so much. Heather Mansy, signing off. Wow, that was a powerhouse session with Tiffany Gelzinis, CEO of the Gelzinis team. She is extraordinary. The takeaways for this episode are just incredible. I had a hard time just coming up with 3 or 4 or 5 things. So we'll go through them real quick here. Heart of entrepreneurship from an early age. Tiffany basically started collecting bottles and cans. She basically always had a vision for something, was striving for something, was breaking away from the pack. Don't be surprised if this is you and you find yourself on this show. Basically, this is something that she started cultivating and recognizing, and it may sound quite small, but it's basically a key indicator of someone who is literally going forward in life and looking to create something new. She sees herself partly as a servant leader. She showed concern for the success of those in her organization, such that she actually restructured the typical method of organization within a team, simply because she wanted to create a better system that better took care of those people that were under her. And this was because she sees herself as what is true leadership, which is, again, having that heart for the people under you and having that sense of responsibility and concern. Knowledge is key. So immersing yourself in learning what you seek. Basically, she's looking at podcasts, coaching, books. She had pivotal changes in her business because of coaching and other things. She is someone who has been learning very actively and continues to do so to this day. She gave us the example that in her, her MBA degree, she had all these books and resources. She actually went back through them later on and started rereading some of those textbooks to gain nuggets of wisdom she could employ in her business. So that concept that knowledge can absolutely level you up, and then implement imperfectly. It's just the understanding that you can't just keep getting ready to get ready. You need to go forward. You need to put something in play that you have learned and understand that's probably going to have to get modified as you go forward. But actual, going forward and working on stuff. Then women in business, she talked about several things just in general. Speak your mind. Ask for what you want. If you're trying to rise in the corporate world, or if you're trying to impress someone, don't expect them to read your mind. Speak your mind. Ask for what you want. If you want that promotion or raise, you need to be able to step up and say it. And if you feel you don't deserve it yet, that may not matter, or do whatever is necessary to get to where you are comfortable asking for that, or you feel it's the right time. Don't act small. That was probably her number one coaching advice on just generally in business. Don't act small. Stop apologizing, and then train to gain. Basically learn to fill the knowledge gaps that you have. So if you're not quite ready to ask for that promotion, raise, whatever it is, look for what it is you don't offer, what it is you don't yet know. Go and learn that thing. Tiffany used to manage an engineering firm. This was huge for her. It was a very male-dominated industry, and she had to learn a lot to be able to take this on. And so she definitely did the hard work there. And then personally, comparison kills joy. So I loved that statement. Basically, don't go out there and try to recreate someone else's vision of success. Create your own. Don't compare yourself to whoever has it better than you or is somehow higher up that ladder than you. Look for what you have done. And she also talked about celebrating the gaps along that same thought. Basically, know that it's where you came from to now that deserves celebration. You can look to the future, you can look to those higher goals, but you need to be able to celebrate the small incremental wins. And then she did have some incredible advice on, how to manage herself. She took brain breaks. I love it. I'm going to steal in that idea. She would take 10 minutes throughout the day. She said it takes a 10-minute reset to know, am I on task? Am I focusing on core things that I need to be doing today? And so again, Tiffany said, take what works for you. It may not be that. Yours may be a 5 a.m. workout. It's completely up to what you need as a human to function your best. And then lastly, process. Know your numbers. She said data for a lot of people is a 4-letter word. She is a systems expert, and basically you can use systems that give you clarity. And so seek out those systems, whether it's an incredible CRM like Follow Up Boss, which yes, I personally use in my own one of my own companies, but just understanding that there are ways that you can analyze your numbers, and getting good at that is really key to scaling, retaining and keeping and going forward with the business you have, and also being able to project and move forward as you need to and invest in important things. So lots more takeaways. This was such a packed session. My advice, go watch the whole thing if you haven't. And then obviously we have some additional links and other things for you down below. So that's it. Heather signing off.